I'm Yuki, 30 years old, a software engineer. Our family home in Burlington, Vermont, where I lived with my parents, had always been everything to me. I had poured my heart into this place, believing it would forever be my one safe haven. Every wall, every door carried the weight of my efforts and the dreams I nurtured for years. Then at dinner, my mother slammed her fork against the table. The sound cut through the room like a sentence being passed. "You have 48 hours to get your stuff out," she yelled. "That house is your sister's now." My father only nodded, his eyes fixed on his plate. And my sister Kaori, who had been living far away in California, barely caring about this home, was suddenly handed everything. I looked around the house, remembering how I had carried its weight, cared for every corner, and kept it standing as a real home. All those sacrifices, all that effort wiped away in a single cruel sentence. The one who gave nothing was rewarded with everything while I was cast aside as if I had never belonged. I froze. My heart pounded wildly. The air thick and suffocating. Their words cut like knives, but arguing was pointless. I rose quietly, went to my room, gripped my phone tightly, and began to plan something they would never see coming. They thought I would just walk away. Wrong. In 48 hours, when Kaori stepped inside that house, she would wish she never had. Before we continue, I want to know what time is it right now and which city are you watching from? Leave a comment so I can see just how far my story has traveled. The next morning, I woke up in our Burlington home, the weight of my mother's words still heavy. I'd spent years making this house ours, believing it was a shared promise. Living with my parents, I'd taken on their burdens, pouring my heart and savings into every corner. After their financial crash 5 years ago, I stepped up. My software engineering job paid well, so I covered the mortgage $80,000 over 3 years when they couldn't. I didn't hesitate. This was our home where I'd grown up, where every memory felt sacred. I still remember the day the bank called, threatening foreclosure. My father sat at the kitchen table, head in his hands, papers scattered. My mother paced, her voice tight with worry. "We're going to lose everything," she said. I couldn't let that happen. I drained my savings, worked overtime, and paid off the loan. The relief on their faces made it worth it. Or so I thought. Kaori, though, was a ghost. Living in California, she called maybe twice a year, always too busy with her marketing job. When I mentioned the mortgage, she laughed it off. "That's your thing, Yuki," she said once, her voice dripping with dismissal. I sent her photos of the new living room, new curtains, a plush sofa I'd saved for. She didn't reply. I told myself it didn't matter. I was doing this for us, for the family. Looking back, I missed the signs. My mother's calls to Kaori grew longer, her tone softer than with me. My father would mention her life in California, her success with a pride I never heard from me. I brushed it off, told myself it was normal. They were my parents. They'd never push me out. But last night's dinner proved me wrong. Their decision to hand the house to Kaori wasn't just unfair. It was a slap in the face. Every dollar I'd spent, every hour I'd worked felt stolen. By early afternoon, I needed answers. So I dialed Haruka, my best friend since our college days at the University of Vermont. She's a lawyer now with a sharp mind and a no-nonsense attitude. Always my go-to when life gets complicated. Sitting on my bed, surrounded by the familiar walls of our Burlington family home, I poured out the chaos from last night. Haruka didn't interrupt, just listened, her calm focus grounding me. "Do you have any legal papers for the house?" she asked, her tone all business. "Anything from your parents or before them?" I mentioned my grandfather who'd owned this place before he passed 2 years ago. I'd always thought it went to my parents after his death. Haruka went quiet for a moment. "Give me an hour," she said. "I'll check something." I spent that hour restless, pacing the hallway, my mind racing. My grandfather's face kept flashing in my head, his weathered hands, his gravelly voice telling me stories on the front porch about building this house brick by brick. He'd look at me, his eyes crinkling, and say, "Yuki, this place will always be yours." I'd smiled, thinking it was just his way of making me feel special. Now, I wasn't so sure. Haruka called back, her voice tight with urgency. "Yuki, you're not going to believe this." She'd reached out to a colleague in estate law and tracked down my grandfather's will at the Chittenden County Clerk's office. My parents had never mentioned it, not once. Haruka read the document over the phone, each word hitting like a hammer. My grandfather had left the house to me alone, not my parents, not Kaori. The will was signed, notarized, and filed 3 years before he died, naming me as the sole heir to the Burlington property. I sank onto the bed, my hands trembling. How did I not know? I whispered. Haruka's voice turned cold. Your parents had access to the will. They chose to keep it from you. The truth was a punch to the gut. My father and mother, the people I'd trusted my whole life, had hidden my grandfather's final wish to give Kaori the house. I saw it all clearly now. Their long phone calls with her, their pride in her California life, their silence about my sacrifices. They'd watched me pour $80,000 into this place, fix every broken piece, and still planned to hand it to someone who hadn't set foot here in years. My chest tightened, a mix of anger and hurt. This wasn't just unfairness. It was a deliberate stab in the back, a betrayal of everything I'd believed about family. I stood up, my jaw clenched, and walked to the kitchen. My grandfather's old coffee mug sat on the counter, a chipped relic I'd kept. Holding it, I remembered his promise, his belief in me. They'd tried to erase that, to rewrite his legacy for their own reasons. Haruka broke through my thoughts. This will is ironclad, Yuki. She said, you have legal rights to the house. We can challenge this. Her words were like a lifeline pulling me out of the fog. I grabbed a notebook from the drawer, my hands steadier now, and started listing everything I could use. Bank statements, receipts, proof of my contributions. Haruka promised to meet me the next morning to map out our options. The next morning, I woke early, my notebook still open from last night's planning. My parents were gone, visiting friends in Montpelier, leaving the house quiet. I stood in the living room, staring at the sofa I'd bought with my first big paycheck. If I was being forced out, I wasn't leaving my things behind for Kaori to claim. I grabbed a pen and started listing every item I'd paid for. The flat-screen TV mounted on the wall, the stainless steel washing machine in the basement, the curtains I'd picked out to match the beige paint I'd rolled on myself. Each item felt like a piece of me, proof of my years keeping this house alive. I searched online for moving companies in Burlington and found Green Mountain Movers. I called and spoke to a guy named Tom, explaining I needed a rush job. Can you do it today? I asked, my voice firm. He hesitated, then agreed to send a truck by noon. I gave him the list. The TV, the sofa, the washer, a few smaller items like the microwave and my bedroom dresser. This is personal property, I told him. I'm taking what's mine. Tom didn't ask questions, just confirmed the address and quoted me a price. The movers arrived at noon, a 3-man crew with a white van. I walked them through the house, pointing out the tagged items. They worked fast, hauling the sofa and TV to the truck, wrapping the washer in blankets to avoid scratches. Watching them carry my things out felt strange, like I was dismantling my life, but also right. I wasn't giving Kaori a free ride. By mid-afternoon, the house felt hollow, my belongings gone with the movers. I stood in the living room, its bare walls echoing the absence of the sofa and TV I'd taken. The silence was broken by a sharp knock at the door. I opened it to find Kaori standing there, her suitcase at her feet, eyes narrowed like she already owned the place. She'd flown in from California, probably thinking she'd walk into a fully furnished home. Kaori pushed past me, her heels clicking on the hardwood. Where's everything? She snapped, scanning the empty living room. I crossed my arms, staying by the door. I took what's mine, I said, keeping my tone even. She spun around, her face flushing. Yours. Mom and Dad said this house is mine now. You don't get to strip it bare. I stepped forward, my voice steady but cold. I paid for that sofa, the TV, the washer, everything I took. You didn't contribute a dime. Her eyes widened, but she didn't back down. You think you're entitled because you threw some money around. She shot back. This is my home now, Yuki. You're out. The air crackled with tension. You haven't been here in years, I said. I kept this place standing while you were off in California, ignoring us. Kaori laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Oh please. You stayed here out of pity, playing the good daughter. Mom and Dad chose me for a reason. Her words cut deep, but I didn't flinch. They chose wrong, I said, stepping closer. You don't know half of what I've done for this family. She stormed through the house, checking the kitchen, the basement, her face growing redder with each empty corner. The chairs, the curtains, she yelled, spinning back to me. You took everything. I held her gaze. Only what I paid for. You want a house? Furnish it yourself. Kaori's hands shook as she pulled out her phone. You're unbelievable. I'm calling Mom and Dad. They'll deal with you. I shrugged, leaning against the wall. Go ahead. They are not here. She grabbed her suitcase and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. That evening, I was at Haruka's apartment in downtown Burlington, my belongings safely stored in a nearby unit. My phone buzzed relentlessly, my mother's name flashing on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. When I finally played it, my mother's voice was shrill, almost unrecognizable. "Yuki, what have you done? There's a stranger in our house." My father's voice cut in, heavy with disbelief. "Some man claims he owns it now. Explain yourself." I didn't call back. The truth was, they'd walked into a reality they'd created. Haruka had worked fast, leveraging my grandfather's will to push a legal claim that exposed their deception. The house had been sold quietly, legally, to a new owner, a local investor who jumped at the chance to buy a Burlington property. I hadn't orchestrated the sale, but I'd set the wheels in motion by enforcing my rights. My phone rang again, this time my father. I answered, keeping my voice steady. "Dad, I'm not coming back," I said before he could speak. "You hid my grandfather's will. You tried to give my home to Kaori." He sputtered, his words a mix of anger and shock. "We were protecting the family. You can't just," I cut him off. "You protected Kaori, not me. The will was clear. This is on you." I hung up. My mother called next, her tone sharp with accusation. "Yuki, you're tearing us apart. Come fix this." I took a deep breath, my voice cold. "I'm done fixing your mistakes. Talk to Haruka about the will." I ended the call, silencing my phone. Haruka sat across from me, her laptop open, papers spread out. "They are panicking," she said, her eyes sharp. "The new owner has the deed. They can't undo this." I nodded, staring at my coffee mug. The house I'd fought for was gone. Not because I wanted it sold, but because my parents' actions had forced my hand. I felt a pang of loss, but also a strange relief. They'd underestimated me, thought I'd fold under pressure. They were wrong. Months later, I stood in my new apartment in Burlington, sunlight streaming through the window. I'd built a life of my own, free from the weight of my family's expectations. I'd landed a job at a local marketing firm where my ideas were valued. My days were filled with meetings, coffee runs to the cafe down the street, and quiet evenings arranging my furniture. My sofa, my TV, the pieces I'd fought to keep. I hadn't spoken to my parents or Kaori since that night at Haruka's, and I'd blocked their numbers. The silence was heavy at first, but it gave me space to breathe, to rediscover who I was without their shadow. I heard through a mutual friend that Kaori had scrambled to buy a new house in California. She'd expected to inherit our family home for free, but with it sold, she had to dip into her savings. The news didn't bring me joy, but it felt just. My parents faced their own fallout. Without the house, they'd moved into a small rental on the edge of Burlington. Word spread quickly in our tight-knit community. Neighbors like Mrs. Linda and Mr. William didn't hold back their disappointment. My parents' reputation crumbled as people learned they'd hidden my grandfather's wishes. They were struggling financially too, with no property to leverage and legal fees piling up from their failed attempts to contest the sale. Their choices had led them here, and I was done carrying their burden. Haruka became my anchor, checking in regularly. She'd finalized the legal proceedings, ensuring the sale stood and my rights were protected. Over coffee one day, she grinned and said, "You're stronger than they ever gave you credit for." I smiled back, feeling the truth of it. I'd spent years undervaluing myself, pouring everything into a house I thought defined me. But this ordeal taught me something deeper. My worth wasn't tied to that place or their approval. It was in my ability to stand up, to draw a line, to choose myself. Setting boundaries was the hardest lesson. Cutting contact wasn't about anger. It was about protecting my peace. I'd given too much for too long, trying to please a family that didn't see me. Now I knew better. I walked through Burlington streets, past the lakefront, feeling lighter. The life I was building wasn't perfect, but it was mine. Built on my terms.